although it is temporary visa, but technically is guaranteed pathway to permanent residency.
In today's video, we're talking to Taraneh, the founder of the migration agency Migration Affairs. This is the second time that Taraneh is on the channel. If you missed the first part, I'll leave a link down below to the first video. It's very comprehensive, and if you're planning to move and live in Australia, it's going to be of great help for you. Actually, that video was a success, and now Taraneh is coming back to answer more of your questions. Something that I need to clarify though is that this video is a general overview of the migration process, and it does not constitute legal migration advice. For this, as I always say, contact a registered migration agent because each individual case is different. There are many people on social media providing migration advice without registration, and this is illegal. Providing migration advice without registration is illegal, so be very careful about this, please. Now, having said that, let's get started.
Hello.
Hi Taraneh, how are you? First of all, thank you so much for attending again. Your first video was a success, so thank you so much for helping us, Taraneh, with spreading good information and accurate information.
491 visa is skilled regional visas that is sponsored and nominated through different states, regional areas of each states. Technically, anywhere in Australia would consider regional except from major cities, Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane at the moment. So you could be living in capital city Perth or Adelaide and still considered regional for this 491 visa. It's a 5 years temporary visa. After 3 years of working in those designated areas and living there, so your postcode of residence and work employment postcode where you are located, they both need to be in that area. So then you can apply for 191. So 191 is a permanent stage of 491 temporary stage. General inquiries about the age limitation. There is an age limit for 491, which is 45, but there is no. So since if you are 44 and you get 491 granted to you, and then there is no age limit for 191. So you need to major requirement, get on a skill assessment. First, your occupation is need to be listed for that visa. 99% of occupations offer that visa anyway, 491 visa. And then you need to check eligibility for that state. Every state, they have their own nomination process and then their own requirements. Generally, it's a lot easier to go through 491 because it allows 15 extra points compared to 189 and 10 extra points compared to 190. So if you just meeting 65 for 190, I usually advise consider 491 as well. It is, although it is temporary visa, but technically is guaranteed pathway to permanent residency as long as within these 5 years you can meet that work experience. And best part is the work experience can be in any occupation you wish to be. There is no minimum income requirement for this visa. So you could be working as anything as you wish to for 3 years. As long as you lodge your tax every year, you can demonstrate you worked in that area, you lived in that area, and you contributed to the economy of that region, and you can go through 191. For getting nominated and applying for 491, obviously you need to have a skill assessment in a specific occupation and experience in the same occupation. After the grant of the visa, you don't have to worry about, okay, if I'm nominated as a chef, but I tried for 6 months and I can't find a job, I cannot absolutely find a job as a chef, what do? You can work as a cook, you can work as a waiter, or you can completely change direction and start working as an actress, completely fine. As long as you have that full-time employment, you earn money, you pay taxes. Well, technically, yes, you need to stay in that state, in that designated regional area. You need to live there and work there. However, when the 491 is granted to you, there is no condition that states you have to stay in that nominated DRA, but you made a declaration that you would stay in that nominated state by going through that invitation nomination process. So moving to different states, so morally not correct and may risk cancellation of 491. But based on legislation, technically you may be able to, if that's what you're planning, reach out and get a consultation and see if you can move to different DRAs. If being away means you are on a holiday and temporary away from Australia, that could be okay. That is, holiday is fine. Anyone can go for a holiday and take leave from your employment and leave the country. However, generally speaking, as a primary applicant, you need to be living and working in that designated area to meet the condition, to meet the eligibility for 191, eventually for permanent residency. Okay, I saw that question. So states should gradually open through this financial year. So every financial year from 1st July, they're supposed to slowly open and release their data and quota for that year. So we will update everyone, whoever's following newsletter or our social media, that which state is open, how many numbers for each categories.
For those watching, if you want more advice on 491, contact Taraneh, or they also have, I'm going to attach a link to a very comprehensive FAQs. Was it on LinkedIn?
LinkedIn. Newsletters on LinkedIn, they can subscribe, and this is free information we provide quite often, every couple of weeks. And any update as it comes, we provide details. So if they register and subscribe on newsletter on LinkedIn, which is completely free, they receive those updates. When we go through, especially our initial consultation, we assess how much points you have and how you can improve it. One of the ways most people can improve their points is improving their English proficiency, obviously. So that's the easiest one. If you're competent level, you don't get any points. Proficient level, you get 10 extra points, massive jump. And superior level, you get 20 points, which is excellent way of improving your points. Comparing if you are offshore, equivalent of getting 5 extra points would be 3 years of employment, which is 3 years of your time and life. This is English level, maybe with some exercise, doing some tests and doing a few more exams, you can achieve the points you want. Some of my clients jump from different exams, from IELTS to PT to Cambridge, and they eventually achieve that level of superior English they need. If you don't have minimum requirement points for a 190 for permanent residency or 189, and you have maxed out your English or your NATI examination or everything else you could have, then I would advise you consider 491. 491, it gives you extra 15 points. In most cases, whoever is not meeting minimum points for 189 or 190 will meet it with 491 because of the automatically getting extra 10 points. If none of that worked for you, then you can look into finding a position in Australia and a willing employer for a sponsorship. That is not point tested. As we spoke, there are some age limitation for the main applicant. If you're referring to children as a dependent of a skilled worker, children's age limit is 18 generally across all. However, if they're full-time student, they're still living with you or financially dependent of the parents, that age limit could go up to 23 years old and they can still come as a dependent of a skilled worker. If you're referring to a partner of a skilled worker, there is no age limit. I just want to remind everyone of this because most people that I do consultation with, the both couple are skilled workers and they don't realize they both actually can go through this separately, but they put each other as dependent as well. So if your partner is a skilled worker as well, obviously age limit applies to her or him as a main applicant, and it's good idea to look at her or his situation to see whether or not they can get skill assessment and they can and also put expression of interest. Just give you an example. Recently had a couple that they wanted to try both New South Wales and Victoria, and I advised them not choose one state. After going through the consultation, we realized both husband and wife both were skilled, highly skilled, and they were just concentrating on the husband as a main applicant. So we decided to go through the husband as a main applicant with Victoria State and the wife as a main applicant for New South Wales State. And you don't have to go through all the process separately. After invitation, whoever got invited first, then we go through main part, which is visa application and the biggest cost with that main person and a dependent. So it's just sort of increasing your options, and you have two players, as I say it, you have two players in the game, just one, rather than just one and waiting for that invitation. There are temporary options. If you are 46, depending to what occupation you have, obviously 482 visa, employer sponsorship, doesn't have any age limit, but that's staying in Australia temporarily. It could be 4 years, it could be even unlimited if your occupation is on medium term. We have had clients that stayed on 482 for a very long period of time. However, if you would need a pathway to permanent residency, you need to look at a specific list. For example, DAMA's designated area migration agreements, and there are certain pathways through transitioning from 482 to 186 depending, for example, your occupation. You could be university lecturer, faculty member, a scientist who works for Australian scientific government agencies, or if you are a medical practitioner and work in regional area, or if you have any occupation but with high income threshold, which is crazy high at the moment, is 167,500 Australian dollars. But if you have that and your occupation, any kind of occupation, sales and marketing, we usually get these sort of salaries in sales reps, then you can, even if it's 46 or older, you can have a pathway for PR. Yes, you need to meet the ANZSCO requirements. So ANZSCO website's available to public. So you can go to ANZSCO website, type in your occupation. For example, you are a chef. You type in chef and you look at what are the requirements for my occupation. So for example, under this occupation, I believe it is 3 years of highly relevant experience may substitute the formal qualification. So if you have 3 years, you're working for 3 years, doesn't have to be for a specific for your employer. Any 3 years experience, and then your employer can sponsor you for a 482 visa. However, you need to have in mind there are some mandatory skill assessment. If you are from certain countries, I give you an example for occupation under chef. So if you, for example, from Bangladesh, Brazil, China, Fiji, Hong Kong, India, and so on, there is a list. For each occupation, there is a list. And if you are a chef and you are from Brazil, you need a mandatory skill assessment. Therefore, not only ANZSCO, you need to check ANZSCO, and then you need to check that a skill assessment authority, what they require in order to give you a skill assessment. For example, for chef, you still can go through it without a qualification, but certain years is added to up to 6 years in order for the body to give you an RPL, what we call it, recognition of prior learning. They go and assess the RPL. They give you a certificate. You get two things in one application. You get a certificate and as well as a skill assessment. Therefore, then you can get a sponsor for a 482. So generally speaking, you need to check if you need a mandatory skill assessment for employer sponsorship. If not, then check ANZSCO. If ANZSCO says 3 years of employment or 5 years employment substitute the formal qualification, yes, your employer can sponsor you for a 482 visa. Remember, I mentioned 482 visa, and then you can transition 186. Direct 186 visa, which is employer sponsorship visa for permanent residency, needs a skill assessment, 100%. So there's not whether or not to check mandatory skill assessment, 100% for direct 186. Really good question. We're getting so many good questions. Generally, if your circumstances change and you withdraw your visa for no reason, then there is nothing to be concerned about. There is no section when you're applying for new visa application to say list out all the withdrawal application you have made. There is no section. However, having said that, if you withdraw your application after receiving RFI request for further information or receive notice of intention to refusal, or any other reason regarding character, and you withdraw it because you panicked or you didn't know how to answer it, and they give you 28 days, which is under time pressure, always without withdrawing, seek advice. However, if you did withdraw it, you still don't need to worry about it or disclose it for the next application, but you need to remember that request would come again. So you somehow want to address the department concerns. So to just summarize it for you, no, you don't have to disclose any application you have withdrawn, but it matters what was the underlying reasons for it. Been really good if we could have combined them, but unfortunately no, you have to restart the whole 2 or 3 years. At the moment it's 3 years transition to permanent residency, but with the new migration reform they're hoping to reduce it to 2 years for any occupations. But no, you have to restart. So you need to change. If you change employment, change nomination to new employer company, you can work on the same 482. The reason you need to change it because the time starts from day one. So you need the extra 2 or 3 years on the 482 with the new employer in order to transition to PR. These are unfortunate circumstances, and we have come across this before. You cannot sponsor yourself. Self-sponsorship has been removed for many years, and it was existed before for people who ran their own businesses. But in this question, in this scenario, if the employer refused to sponsor you for the next stage of the process, you cannot do anything about it. However, get an advice because you most likely have other pathways or independent pathways to go through permanent residency if you've been working on a 482 for a couple of years. This is referring specifically to new care worker scheme, new aged care industry labor agreement. There are some relaxation for 482 visa, including income at the moment from 1st July this year across all occupation. If an employer wants to sponsor a skilled worker, the minimum income is 70K per annum, but it doesn't work for all occupations. Some occupation like aged care, the industry award is a lot lower than that. So what department in Minterm is doing is offering these industry labor agreements. So for aged care industry labor agreements, there is income relaxation reduced to 51, estimation of 51K per annum. English is reduced to 5 for speaking and listening and 4.5 for reading and writing, and skills concessions. So you only need 1 year and certificate 3 and 1 year. However, unfortunately there is no age relaxation under this scheme. If you are older than 45, there is still pathway. You need to look at DAMA pathway. So there are further relaxation which is under 186. We don't need to go through them now, but specifically answering this question, there is no age relaxation at the moment under new aged care industry labor agreement, and we will update everyone early next year. I think this space will change. The requirement will change. We need aged care workers. 189 visa is permanent residency visa. With diploma in childcare, no. The only related occupation we have, which is available for 189 visa, is early childhood pre-primary school teacher, which is usually 3 to 5 years old, preschoolers we call them. It requires a bachelor degree for a skill assessment to gain a positive skill assessment, and for 189 you definitely need that. But there are childcare workers which not on the general list of occupations, which doesn't go under 189. It only unfortunately goes on the DAMA program, which you need an employer to sponsor you. An employer needs to be registered on the DAMA program. That's actually good because at the moment, higher education student visa going through with maximum of 24 days, which is amazing. Big change from last year. It depends if the application is decision ready, what country of passport holder, whether or not you submitted all the necessary documents, and whether or not they need to do external checks. And if they do external checks, it depends to external agencies. External checks is particularly related to health, character, national security requirements, which that could take up to 18 months if that happens, and they need to do extra checks. However, most cases, about a month.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very fast.
Thank you so much, Tarne. And again, if people want to get in touch with you, how can they do so?
Reach out to us, email us with your resumes. We have this initial quick assessment or discussion, we call it, but it mainly is for you guys to send us a brief information about yourself or your resumes or CV. If you don't have a resume or CV, you can quickly just write down your qualification, your employment experience, and brief information about yourself. What we do is 5 or 10 minutes, we go through it. If you receive a respond email from us with the forms, meaning we already done that initial stage, and you have some pathways for permanent residency, and then we need to discuss it further in a consultation. So then we do the consultation. We usually send a very detailed advice letter post consultation, and we take it from there.
So I'll put Tarne's details and migration affairs details, everything in the video description. Thank you so much. And yeah, more videos to come as well with Tarne answering questions.
My pleasure. Thanks, Martina.